Welcome to this Arab News special interview. With us in the studio, we have Michael Taylor, a former U.S. commando. He was recently thrust into the limelight when he led the team that helped get Carlos Ghosn, the former Nissan CEO, out of Japan by smuggling him in a large music case. Michael and his son Peter were arrested in the U.S. and then extradited to Japan. He talks to us today about that operation, how the relationship with Ghosn turned sour, and his upcoming Apple TV documentary. Mr. Taylor, having planned and executed what some would call the greatest escape, many people are praising you for the ingenuity. Others say you assisted a criminal, therefore you yourself have committed a crime. How do you see yourself?
Article 103 of the Japanese Penal Code says clearly it's not a crime. Bail jumping is not a crime in Japan, which a lot of people around the world don't realize. Because most Western countries, and even in the Middle East, if you're out on bail and you depart that country, it's a violation of law. That's not the case in Japan. So people are entitled to their opinions, but the fact of the matter is the law is the law. Article 103 of the Japanese Penal Code is clear. It says that it's only a violation of law if you help somebody get released from incarceration, such as prison, a police car, in handcuffs.
But you pleaded guilty. Guilty of what exactly? And if you don't think you committed a crime, why didn't you just go ahead with the trial?
Very simple. It was a business decision. To get to a trial in Japan, as we saw with Greg Kelly, it takes an average of 3 to 3.5 years. So to get to a trial, I'd have to sit there in jail in solitary confinement at the Tokyo Detention Center for 3 to 3.5 years. And once you get to trial, the trial takes 6 months, maybe a year. It depends, because you only go to trial a couple days out of each month. And then you have a 99.4% conviction rate in Japan. So we got a 0.6 chance of winning, the truth. So at that point, 3 years passes, perhaps 3.5. Then I go to trial, 99.4% conviction rating, so more than likely I'll get convicted. So then you spend another 2 to 3 years in jail. So instead of the max penalty being 24 months, which I served, it would have been close to 6 years. That's why I say it was a business decision.
But you apologized to the prosecutor and Japanese justice system for helping Ghosn escape. Was this done under duress?
Of course it was. I was in solitary confinement there. I was in solitary confinement for 17 months. I was allowed to have a shower 2 times in 6.5 months. What civilized country does that?
So you think your trial in Japan was rigged from the get-go? You clearly don't think highly of the Japanese legal system, do you?
Of course it was rigged from the get-go. It was a political decision. Trump and Pompeo are the ones that, extradited us. Trump beating his chest constantly saying he protects veterans, and the #1 job of the President of the United States, of any nation, is protect their citizens. As we saw recently, the British courts denied an extradition request to ship some British citizens to Japan because the British courts say very clearly that Japan tortures people and violates their human rights. Therefore, they will not extradite them.
There were allegations that you and your son Peter were subjected to torture in prison. Is that true? Take us through the way you were treated.
Of course it's true. Well, you have no attorney-client privilege, first of all. So to speak to my attorneys and to tell them about the briefings that I had with prosecutors, their interrogation, I have to write it down on a piece of paper that says privileged communication. However, your privileged communication is a farce because I have to give those papers to the guard. The guards copy them, do whatever they want them, and 20 and 30 minutes later, they get to my lawyers who were sitting on the opposite side of the glass. So, and after you plead guilty, every time you see your lawyers, you're monitored by a guard and an interpreter there who's writing everything down. So you don't have attorney-client privilege as well. And as far as the torture, 17 months in solitary confinement, 2 showers in 6.5 month period of time. There's no heat. You get frostbite daily. No air conditioning or ventilation during the summer. People are passing out from, heat stroke. So I would say, and according to the United Nations, that's clearly torture and violation of human rights.
And how is your son doing now?
He's doing fantastic. He's got his health back. He's young. He's vibrant. So he's doing quite well. Thank you.
Well, if what you're saying is true, your country, the United States, must have come to the rescue. Did the U.S. government help in any way?
No, the U.S. government did not help. They helped the Japanese. there's some rumors going on that, I hope that some good investigative journalists somewhere work on, and that is that there was some type of business arrangement made where quid pro quo for Aegis destroyers, Aegis radars for Japan, which we found interesting. I don't know if it's true or not, but would love to see somebody investigate that to see if it was a quid pro quo and that, you purchase these Aegis radars from us, we'll look favorably upon an extradition request. It's just amazing that we get extradited for what legal scholars say is not a violation of law whatsoever, yet 3 Japanese citizens from Takata Airbag, who's now responsible for the death of 29 human beings, don't get extradited when they're indicted in federal court in Michigan back in December of 2016. Where's that logic?
Would you consider you and your son collateral damage? How does that make you feel, especially that you were also incarcerated when you arrived back in the U.S.?
Well, anytime you're collateral damage, yeah, you feel like your country betrayed you, and they did. And you know that old saying, karma's a well, I understand Trump just got indicted again in Georgia. So
Clearly you seem you went through a lot. Was the money worth it? How much did Carlos Ghosn pay you? I have heard something between $3 to $5 million. Is that true? And did you get the full amount?
well, I'm not going to go into any conversations about finances, but I could tell you my legal fees are still outstanding and they're very high. Anytime you're dealing with legal fees on both sides of an ocean like that, both in the United States and in Japan, your legal fees end up, tallying up quite high. And I had some wonderful lawyers on both sides. I had Dan Marino, Tillman Finley, Abby Lowe, Paul Kelly, Ty Cobb. And Ty Cobb, former general counsel in the White House, didn't even charge a dime for his time in his service, trying to help prevent this from happening. And one of the main things is that one of the motions they filed in federal court in Boston was that no American should be extradited to Japan because there will be torture. Judge Tawani, the judge, requested that the State Department provide her with a sworn affidavit saying that we will not be tortured. And of course they play with the diplomatic language saying it's more likely than not they won't be tortured. They know very well there's going to be torture because on the State Department's own website they publish documents saying that, in the prisons people are getting frostbite because there's no heat.
Mr. Ghosn, if he was here, would say that he settled the amount as per written agreement with your son. Do you dispute that?
Again, I don't comment on anything like that, and I don't know that he would say such a thing.
So what's next? Will you be suing him? How will you get the money you think you are owed?
Again, it's the financial issues that we don't discuss in the public domain.
So clearly you think Carlos did you wrong. But what are your views on his whole lawsuit with Nissan? Was he a villain or a victim?
That's not for me to say. My whole involvement with this was, and as it was presented to me, that there's a man over there being tortured. And to the point where he can't even, according to the court, talk to his wife. What country in the world says, okay, we're going to let you out on bail, but you can't even have a telephone call with your wife, let alone beer? What are they trying to acerbate a divorce? To break up a family? I don't understand that. Who does that? What country does that? What civilized nation does that? That's a condition of your bail. You're going to put up over $13.8 million, something in that neighborhood, for a bail. Oh, and by the way, you're not allowed to talk to your wife.
Tell us about the upcoming Apple TV documentary and how it's different than the one which appeared on Netflix and NBC Shahid.
Well, the Apple documentary is coming out, and I understand it's going to be a 4-part series, and it will be aired on August 25th, so very shortly. The difference is it's the only documentary that I participated in and my son Peter participated in. So the other documentaries we didn't participate in, so you only got a portion of the story. So here you're getting more of the full story.
So what is next for you?
Well, next I'm working on my company, which is Vitamin One. It's a healthy hydration drink full of vitamins and electrolytes and no sugar. And with any luck, we'll start producing it here in Dubai with some wonderful partners, the National Food Company, and a great country, and looking forward to serving the people of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.